On this episode of Purposely Curious, we take on the subject of Disney. We look into some of Disney's abandoned parks and projects. We discuss why some of these were abandoned and discuss the project that could have been. So, if you love anything Disney, get nice and cozy as this episode starts now. Hello, Leonie.
Greetings, Mary. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Today is January 1st is when we are recording our, first episode of the year.
Yeah. In the year
2021.
of... Yes.
2021. I'm ready for this year.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. 2020 was definitely a hard year for a lot of us. Maybe harder for some of us than others.
Right.
But we're going to move forward. And 2021 is going to be better for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Hey, are you one to make New Year's resolutions?
No, I don't make New Year's resolutions. It's never really been my thing.
Right.
But I do feel like it's a way to, when I guess the new year starts, it's a way to look at a new year with new chances to making ourselves better.
Right.
You know, none of us are perfect.
Right.
So, but I don't say like, oh, I'm going to do this and do this, you know. Well, no, I guess I kind of do. But it's not, I don't see it as a resolution, as more as a like lifestyle change, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. That's goals, right? You just have goals for the year, for example, right? I mean.
Yeah. I just don't call them resolutions.
Right.
But I wouldn't even say they're like goals. Like, well, maybe, yeah, no, they are. Obviously, we were talking about how the year 2020 was hard. And I was telling you earlier how I started looking into, I guess, the positive mindset and affirmations. And I've been really kind of delving into that. And so I guess you can say that for 2021, it's going to be about me. I want to worry about me, focus about me, not care what other people are doing, and just be at a better place. You know, work has been tough with COVID.
Right.
And I think, you know, I don't want to get too much into it, but just certain conversations with families just weigh a little harder now with COVID because they can't see their loved ones. And, you know, so it's been emotionally taxing. Plus our personal lives, right? So I definitely was like, I need to change something if I'm going to survive this fucking pandemic.
Right.
And so I guess for the sake of your question, even though I don't call it a resolution, my goal in life is to continue to think and look at the positive of everything, be grateful for those who are in my life, you know, and just remind myself that I'm a bad bitch, you know, like shit happens and it's stressful, but I can tell you that in the few weeks that I've been kind of doing this, I feel my anxiety level drop dramatically.
That's good.
Which is, yeah, so I'm a believer now, I can tell you that. But I guess you can say, for the sake of the conversation, that's my New Year's resolution, is continue on this positive manifestation journey that I am embarking in.
That's great.
Spiritual awakening.
That's great.
Yeah. And yourself?
You know, I something I neglected pretty much most of last year was a couple things, music and art, you know, and those are two things. Music I've been doing for a very, very long time, most of my life actually, but art, I'm not an artist, okay, at all, but I actually learned that when I had high anxiety, high like, you know, where my brain could not shut off, you know, at night, and I couldn't sleep, you know, like I actually just picked up painting, you know, one night. And of course I picked up the hardest thing you can, which is oil painting. And nobody could help me because nobody knows how to oil paint, you know, and nobody had advice for me. You know, everybody's like, oh, just do acrylic. It's easier. And I'm like, I get it, but I don't like acrylic. You know, I don't like the look of it, you know. So, yeah. But I used to paint a lot over the last 5 years. And believe it or not, it's the one thing that would shut my mind off. Like, it's
Oh,
like meditating. It's like when I was done, I was like at peace, and I'm like, cool, I can go shower and go to sleep now, and I'm happy. Like, and I actually would sleep like 8 hours or 7 hours or whatever, you know.
yeah.
So it's something I've neglected this past year, and just so stupid, you know. It's just like I like there's no reason why I should have, but it's so easy to do so because probably in the same mindset as everybody else who's worried about everything, right? I mean, just you know how life is going, their jobs, economy, or loved ones, or health, and all that. So it's just one of those things where, you know, I gotta start doing again to get my mind, you know, in the right mindset when I need to. And
Yeah.
so that's the one, you know, big thing I want to do is my hobbies, you know, photography, painting, hiking, music. If I can get those things on track again for this next year, I think I'll have a very solid, happy, you know, productive year despite whatever else I'm doing in life, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So you need to change the way you say I can. You got to say I that's what you're doing.
Right.
And I'm telling you this cuz that's what I'm telling myself cuz you know, Leonie gets like TikTok videos from me. Like
Yeah, please stop. Just stop. Fuck.
like I send Leonie like
The best
you know
dance moves ever.
or no like UFO videos
I
of
know.
like someone's talking about UFOs or like
Right.
stupid shit like that. But
Right.
I somehow I guess when you start liking certain things on TikTok, the algorithm kind of changes.
Right. Right.
And there was a few things that would pop up as a reminder is that you have to stop thinking I can if I can. No, you will.
Yeah.
You're gonna do that shit because
Right.
sometimes we don't realize we're talking ourselves out of it.
Right.
So yes, I'm on the manifestation positive energy TikTok algorithm right now.
Nice. Hey, if it helps,
That's
you
why
know,
I was like,
if it helps and, you know, keeps you going and you feel good, that's all that matters. You know, it's like, it's a
Yeah.
good thing. It's a good thing to be involved in, you know?
so you have to change and say, I will.
I
I'm
will.
gonna do this. Okay. Not
I
if
will.
I can. No. You're
Okay.
doing that shit.
There we go. Thanks, teacher.
No, stop it.
Thanks,
I'm a
Mom.
student. I'm learning about this
Yeah.
stuff.
No, it's good.
Uh,
I'm grateful you can share with me, you know, and everybody else, you know?
Yeah. So anyway, to I guess I have tea with me. I don't know. Do you have water with you or anything? I'm
Yeah.
drinking peppermint tea.
I'm drinking peppermint water. Yeah.
Peppermint water.
Yeah.
Uh, Let's cheers to an amazing ass 2021 because this
Yes.
shit is gonna be amazing. So cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. I'm gonna take a sip here
Clink.
of my peppermint tea. So today I wanted to talk about Disney. It's a Disney themed episode. And so it started off with me kind of looking into abandoned theme parks, and then it turned into like there's abandoned, not so much abandoned, like ideas that they wanted and they really fought for, but it never came to
Right.
for A or B reason. So as you guys all know, you guys must know people that are big Disney, enthusiasts. I know quite a lot, and they're all wonderful people. So a friend of mine named Anna had sent me actually a TikTok of a Disney like place that had been abandoned. And she suggested that it could be something I look into. So I also had spoken to someone named another friend called Alondra. Her and her husband are like, they love Disney. And so, she had suggested looking into certain things, and then I was in the hole of information, and
Right.
I ended up finding out a lot about the park that I didn't realize. So I don't know if you know anything or about like abandoned places.
I know a little bit about the Disney stuff. I've seen photos of some of the parks that I don't know if they were parks that failed or never opened or were left because they Disney built Animal Kingdom or whatever it was, And I will say this though, there is probably a bunch of stories out there that the headlines with the word creepy in them, creepy abandoned Disney attractions, because, and the first thing that comes to mind is every time I look at these photos is Chernobyl. Did you ever see like
Oh,
what happened in Chernobyl back in the 80s?
yes.
You know, that whole town of I can't remember the name of the town right now. Excuse me, but when they evacuated the whole town, it was like drop what you're doing and board the bus and leave now. You know, and when the people left, you know, you can go there. You can go there, and it's not advisable that you go. But if you go, you can actually like walk into these abandoned buildings and schools and stuff, and what you see is like dinner plates still left like they were. You know, like somebody was eating. You know, and some kid was playing and somebody was studying and everything was left as is, and they left because the radiation levels are so high after
Yeah.
the Chernobyl nuclear plant blew up, you know. But that's what a lot of these pictures of the Disney stuff reminds me of, because it, you know, seeing these things without people, it's like it's really creepy.
Yeah. And not only that, you know, obviously Disneyland has so much money. Like everyone talks about the stock market and how Disney really, really always seems to be on top of their shit, you know?
Right.
So a lot of these things that we're going to talk about, I mean, I'm going to speak about five that I found. There's probably a lot more that I don't know. Again, I've been to Disney maybe 3, 4 times in my lifetime. So, you know,
But you've been to Disneyland only 3 times in your lifetime?
I'm not big on crowds.
Oh, okay.
So, I think with the last, I think I went once when I was really young, which I vaguely remember, and then I went when my aunt was here when I was a teenager,
Okay.
and then I went twice with my ex when his best friend and their kids came. So they were like, you know, we're gonna go to Disneyland because we're in Southern California, right?
Right.
So, it was, you know, I like theme parks, but I always feel like I too many people. I've just always been like, oh, there's too many people. Like I like the whole being secluded, or I prefer that,
Right.
you know, like hikes and stuff. But that's why I've only gone that. It was because someone was here visiting essentially, and that's why I was going.
Mm,
I enjoyed my time both or all 4 times. Like I have nothing but good things to say about it.
nice.
But I do, even my cousin Sabrina and her husband, they would go, you know, they had like the season passes and would go all the time.
Right.
But that's just not me. It's nothing wrong with it. It's just not me. But I was very curious to delve into some of these abandoned places. So Disneyland has a huge following and it has a lot of history. So I found River Country, which was Disney's first water park in Orlando, Florida. Have you heard of the River Country?
Yeah, I've heard of it. But that's one place I've never been is the Florida Disney World. You know, I've always wanted to go, and I've never been. But I've heard of this place, and I don't know much about it. I don't know what happened to it, but
Okay. So it opened in June 1976,
Okay.
and it was the first fully themed water park in the world at the time. So that just goes to show you it was ahead of its time, right?
right.
But it was in 1976. It had multiple slides, pools, and even scenic hiking trail. I guess it's kind of like in that area of Orlando, they have like islands in that Bay Area. So it was kind of like on the coast of where the water started, right?
Right.
It was very small, but for the time it was huge. It was very popular and millions of people visited. But as more people started to go into like theme parks and visit like Disney, right? It couldn't accommodate all the people that wanted to visit it. So Disney thought, well, how do we fix this? Like, how can we get more people in? So they started constructing a new water park that would be bigger and accommodate more people. And so that one was called the Typhoon Lagoon. And then they built another one that was bigger than the Typhoon, and they called it Blizzard Beach, right?
Oh, wow.
So now you have two different water parks that are bigger than, you know, the first initial one, which is River Country. So it remained open, but obviously this hurt their attendance, River Country.
Right.
because people were like, well, why would we go to River Country when we have the two siblings here that are a lot bigger, right?
Right, right.
So it remained open for the most part until the 90s, but they had not renovated it or updated it since the 70s. So it was almost like it was lost in time.
Wow.
And so not a lot of people would visit it except those people that had like childhood memories, or for some reason they just always wanted to go there. So by 2002 they closed it. So they would close it they would open it seasonally and close it. And in 2002 they closed it, like for the winter months. But then they never reopened it. So in 2005 they officially announced that it would be permanently closed. So if you search pictures online, you can see how nature has kind of taken over the entire resort. It went neglected for so many years by Disney. So a lot of people were like, Disney has a lot of money. Like, why did they leave it,
Right.
kind of like going to shit, right?
Right.
Apparently Disney had attempted to revive the area with plans for building new things in that vicinity. But for some reason, they just wouldn't pan out for some reason or another. So it laid for 17 years abandoned, and the vegetation just took over. So people, at this point, people who are Disney enthusiasts started like, well, why did they close it down? Was it because, there was like a bacteria in the water or looking into conspiracy theories?
Right.
But in October of 2018, Disney announced that it finally had plans to upgrade the land. And so they were going to make a resort there that is called Reflections. So this is fast forwarding to now. This is supposed to be a resort with 900 plus rooms that are, some of them are going to be like treehouse suites. So it's going to feel like you're in a treehouse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, but apparently it's going to be a luxury resort. So it's going to be kind of pricey where most people are going to be maybe not able to afford it.
Right.
So in 2019, they actually started to get rid of the old River Country. So just imagine for almost 20 years, this land was abandoned. There's YouTube videos, if you guys want to look, of people sneaking in to kind of take a peek. And it looks like a ghost town. It looks like you said, Chernobyl, right?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't look like that now just because they've started construction. But it sounds like due to COVID, they may push the date back. I think it was supposed to open in 2021. So they may push it back. But the videos I saw of River Country before they started this, it made it look very, like you said, you had the right way to describe it as Chernobyl. So I had never heard of River Country.
Me neither.
Before this.
Yeah, me neither. I've only seen it in those stories that I've seen before, and once, again, because I never knew how extensive, how huge Disney World is. Like I know one of my good friends that when I used to work in radio, he took his wife there for their honeymoon when they got married, and he told me that you need 10 days. Like you need more than just 7. You need like more than a week. You need 10 days to see everything. And when you're taking, like, you can't just walk to one park and to another. Apparently, you have to take a shuttle. You have to take a bus to each of the parks. So it's so vast. It's so massive. It's just like you have to go to the whatever hotel, get on the bus that takes you to the water park, takes you to Epcot, takes you to the Magic Kingdom or whatever. And it's just kind of like, it's just huge, So it's one of those things where I knew nothing about that. I didn't realize how big it was, and the fact that they can have so many water parks just adjacent to the Disney, the property there. There's so much space there. Now, whether or not it's available, I don't know the history of that, because I know it's alligator, crocodile, country there, and I'm sure there's some nature preserves and swamplands that they want to preserve. So I don't know what they can or can't build, but whatever they did build, and whether or not it failed or they just are switching over to something new, it'll be interesting to see how they bring a modern twist to this. I think the treehouse suites that you were talking about sound pretty exciting. Like that sounds something like something fun, you know?
Yeah. And actually, I was able to find the actual like plans of, like the sketches
Oh wow.
that the architects did, and it looks really fancy. It looks like you're in a rainforest and there's just, you know, like you're like in Hawaii kind of resort.
Oh, that's cool.
But actually, we're in Florida, right?
Right.
So I don't want to compare like you're in Hawaii, like you're in Florida and there's like marshland around.
Yeah, of course.
But if you guys want to look into that, the resort is going to be called Reflections. You can find it online. They're working and constructing it as we speak. Well, I don't know if as we speak is kind of late at night right now,
Yeah.
but it's something that, I was like, oh, this is very interesting. And this is coming from someone, like I said earlier, that I like Disney, but I've never been an enthusiast. So I was very intrigued by this history. And
Right.
I was, if you look up River Country, just to find out that at the time, right, it was the biggest water park ever in the world, and how quickly it became the smallest and not as pretty,
Right. Right.
Oh, and obviously another thing I saw in one of the documentaries was that it was 1976. So just think in your mind, what, you couldn't, it wasn't illegal to have seatbelts at that time, right?
I don't think so. I think.
Yeah. So it wasn't, the theme park wasn't regulated like they are now.
Right.
So they were saying a lot of things that were in there were probably, a lot of people now would probably be like, I'm not getting on that slide,
Oh,
like.
right. Right.
So they said that, it was just one of those things. So I found that very interesting. There is also another island in the same vicinity called Discovery Island. Had you heard of that?
I heard of it, but I don't know much about it.
Okay.
What's up with the island? What are they? What's the theme? What do they do there?
Okay, so this was a recreation of a tropical rainforest in that same area as the water park that we just talked about.
Okay.
And then it opened in 1974. But initially it was pirate themed. And it was called Treasure Island.
Okay.
So I had no idea. So I was like, oh, this is very intriguing.
Yeah.
And it was renamed in 1978 to Discovery Island. So for 4 years, it was Treasure Island, pirate themed.
Oh, okay.
And so basically, when they renamed it to Discovery Island, they rebranded it to be more of a forest oasis with botanical gardens. They had a lot of birds, like from flamingos, eagles. They even had turtles, just to kind of give you a feel
right.
of the resort. So we went from water park to now we're on this like bay island that's giving you these like botanical vibes, right?
Right.
And so it was really nice to see like the footage, and you would go on a boat, go there, they would you'd see the animals, get to touch them. They had handlers, and apparently in 1989, the U.S. state attorney charged Discovery Island with 16 counts of mistreatment of animals. I guess like one person shot at one.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So I was like, ooh, this is crazy. And this was against, even though it says against Discovery Island, it was against like some of the handlers. And again, this was the 80s, so maybe they weren't as strict or regulated as they are now.
Right. Right.
But then, what was that documentary from SeaWorld with the mistreatment?
Oh, was it?
You know what I'm talking about, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What I was getting at is that I guess even if you're regulated, you always end up finding stuff.
Right.
So around this time when Discovery Island was then being targeted by the U.S. state attorney, it was causing Disney too many problems. So it still remained open, but at that point, Disney started to work on Animal Kingdom. And so because now Animal Kingdom was open, Animal Kingdom essentially took over the people that would visit Discovery Island. And
right.
As time progressed, people stopped going there because they were like, the Animal Kingdom is way bigger. They have way more animals, right?
Right.
So in 1999, Disney abandoned Discovery Island, just like they did the water park. And so it basically, there's only swampland there, and it still to this day remains abandoned and like swampland. And there's also a documentary online where two guys snuck in illegally trespassing, right? They didn't get caught though.
Oh, damn.
They bought a kayak that was inflatable, went over like at nighttime, and you see them documenting and kind of going through the whole island. It looks like another Chernobyl. But the difference with this one is that here we actually had like buildings and offices because there were handlers, right? So you could, they found papers, documents, stuff that kind of like if this was a bomb, right? Like a ghost town. Where did the people go, right?
Yeah.
So that was interesting to see as well. So I thought that video was very intriguing. So I believe it's still empty. So I don't know, but you guys look it up. Discovery Island abandoned. Very, very, very creepy when you go in there. But at the same time, I guess maybe not creepy. It's beautiful marshland now. Mother Nature has taken over.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. There's another one that I found in the Turkish mountains. They call them like the Disney castles. But the more I looked into it, I don't know if it was just sold as a Disney thing.
Huh.
But I'm not really sure if it is a Disney thing. Does
Like-
that make sense?
Like you could just be like Disney themed, but not necessarily a park. Official,
Yeah. So that's what I couldn't get clarification. So
right.
if you guys look up these Disney castles in the Turkish mountains, they look like the Disney castles. They built 500 of them and they're
Oh,
abandoned.
damn.
They're mini mansions. And the plan was to build 732 of these chateaus, but they only built 500. Now, when I say 500, it's almost like just the skeleton of these castles were built.
Right.
But I couldn't find out if Disney was behind it or not. Even though where I did find it, they sold it as Disney. So if anyone knows whether these are or not, basically the company went bankrupt and they haven't finished them. I think the goal was to open the castles or chateaus at the end of this year. That did not happen. The castles are literally, you just have like the skeleton of the outside.
Right.
And so it looks very eerie in the mountains of Turkey. So there are people who have gone in there, also trespassing. And apparently it was supposed to be a community with stores for residents. So like you would be buying this castle.
Oh, wow.
And then it was supposed to have a shopping mall, but it's very eerie to watch. And so, but I couldn't confirm if Disney was behind it, or are people just saying because they look like Disney castles, people assume they were Disney related.
Right.
But if you guys want to check those out, the view is amazing. I mean, I'm like, wow. And it is kind of eerie and creepy because they're literally abandoned, unfinished castles.
That's
It
crazy.
almost looks like a set, but they built 500 of them. So if you can imagine, it's thinking of a set, it's like 500 of them.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, what?
I mean, it'd be so much fun to live in a village like that where like your streets are all castle. Like what would it be? 15th century England or something? Or, back in the day of castles and stuff like that, and knights in armor and all that, It'd be fun where like you go shopping at your local Vons or whatever, Trader Joe's, and it's all castle,
Yeah, and it's crazy because it literally the houses, the little chateaus are kind of, like the main castle that Disney is known for.
Yes, Sleeping Beauty
So
Castle.
the roofs look like that,
Right.
even though they're not that big, they're like small, but you can tell that it's inspired.
Right.
So I thought it was very interesting. So I guess someone out there knows if they're just Disney inspired or if Disney was behind it. But it sounds like the company that was behind it as far as construction may have gone bankrupt. So, but I couldn't find any more information. But I thought, that's very interesting.
Yeah, the crazy thing is you look at these photos and
Are
it
you
looks,
looking at 'em?
yeah, it looks fake. It looks like photoshopped, but they're not.
And they're not. So the video that I found, the guys actually go into them. There's 3 guys and they go into them and they even have a drone And they go into the house, the little chateaus, and you can see some are more finished than others. It was literally just abandoned. And they had like the stairways that go up, but they go up in that circular kind of, I don't know what you call those. I'm not an architect, so I apologize. But these guys in that documentary like snuck in, went into them, and it's just very creepy, eerie vibes, right?
Right, right.
And they're trying to figure out, well, why were they abandoned? You know, like what? But
Yeah.
they also had a drone with them. So they got there on before the sunrise. So when they let the drone go, as this was, they left that to the end so that they can leave, you know? It just looks like beautiful. I
Right.
mean, crazy, but definitely, I don't know about if, again, I don't know if they're Disney related or they were just Disney inspired. But since you're looking at the pictures, can you tell what I was referring to? Like they were built like Disney-ish.
Yeah, they definitely are. The only I would say it's definitely Disney inspired, and it's what the crazy thing is they're built way too close to one another.
Way too close. Yeah.
So like here, it's like you live in any big city, you have houses are close to one another. Like here, your castle is close to one another. It's like somebody's just wanted to build a bunch of them. I guess at the time when they started building these, I believe it cost them 200 million to lay these out.
I don't remember. But
I think it's the number I
again,
saw.
it was supposed to be 700 plus, and they built 500. And when again, these are the skeletons, and some of them actually had like the electrical wiring
Yes.
in. It's pretty interesting and pretty crazy, but I can only imagine what it could have been.
Yeah, and a couple of notable things. One is that apparently customers from Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia have bought around 350 of them out of the 570 Kish, they call them Kish villas that were built. Even though 350 were sold, it's not enough to pay off the debt that they have after building all of that. So I think it's just probably the sales were not gone through or something, or
Yeah.
But
Well,
and
I
then
guess.
the other one thing is that apparently there's some kind of uh lake or something nearby to all these homes, so it's really really close. Some kind of body of water where people claim there's healing powers.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
So maybe that was part of the appeal, where if you believe in that, you know, that maybe that was like, hey, you could live close to that, you could live walking distance to that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a lot of them. Like it almost looks too fake because they're so close to one another.
And that's the thing, guys. If you guys look up these Disney castles, like they look fake. Like
Right.
it's almost, that's why I think they call it the Disney castles, because they
Right.
remind you of the Disneyland like main
Yes.
castle. So I thought that was very interesting. Again, it may not be Disney related, but definitely gives you Disneyland vibes. And
Oh,
so
definitely,
imagine
yeah.
buying property in the mountains with a beautiful view of a city or small town, right? That looks like you're living in Disneyland.
Right.
So that was very interesting to find.
Yeah. I gotta share one thing. I saw a comment online. This made me laugh a little bit. This person posted, "Why would anyone consider buying a creepy gothic luxury castle that is so close to the identical one right next door?"
Yeah. Yeah.
That is so funny.
Yeah. So check that out, guys. It's like, again, maybe Disney wasn't behind it, but it does give you Disney vibes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But yeah. So another place that I found, this one isn't so much, it was abandoned. It's no longer abandoned, was the Legendary Years Resort. This one also, I guess in the 90s, Disneyland had realized that how can they grow? There's a big market. And so they thought they would open more resorts for more low income, because I guess before a lot of the resorts were for middle class and up, right?
Right.
So they wanted to do more affordable ones. And as you guys know, and I didn't realize until I started looking into this, there's fucking resorts, Disney resorts everywhere. Like, you might
Oh
not
yeah.
have Disneyland or Disney World, but there's a Disney resort. And, I guess I kind of knew that, but it's only until I started looking into this that I was like, wow, a lot of their money probably comes from the resorts more so than the actual theme parks.
Right.
So basically, this one, Legendary Years Resort, was supposed to have a theme about decades. So it would be like, the 50s or 60s, right? In 2001, after them talking about it, for in the 90s, in 2001, they started construction, and they were going to open it either 2001 or 2002. But do you know what happened in 2001?
Was it a 9/11?
9/11.
Yeah.
So there was a tourism crash after 9/11. And so Disney, they have a lot of money. They had everything ready to go, and they were able to build the buildings. The hotels were built. But at that point, the tourism crash came after 2011, and it didn't recover until after like 2003. So they were at a loss financially, in the sense of no one was going to the theme parks. We were all scared, right? We didn't want to, a lot of us didn't want to be in public places. Are we going to be bombed? Are we going to
Right.
war? What the fuck is happening? Right? So they basically scrapped it. And so now you had, multi-million-dollar buildings just sitting there, empty, brand new, and they
Wow.
didn't finish them. And, I was just in college when September 11th happened. But I didn't realize that there was a tourism crash until I started looking into this.
Right.
So do you remember that or at all, or
I
as far
do.
as being a tourism crash where tourism just took a big hit in the US?
Yeah, I do. I mean, well, there was a good right at the day of 9/11 plus a week or two. Like there was a no-fly zone over the U.S. for at least a week. I think I want to say so. Nobody was flying, and then after that extended, and people were like not feeling safe, and then people were like unsure, like how are we gonna be protected, and then I think the Department of Homeland Security was formed, I want to say, and that took over, like screening passengers and background checks and all that stuff, So, and then of course you have the whole rule of like you gotta be at the airport 3 hours before your flight, or 4 hours international, but whatever those rules are, and you can't go through screening with shoes on or belts on, like So I think with all that, made things a little bit scarier, but at the same time made people feel safer while flying, So
Yeah.
so yeah, there was a lot of scary, and you remember that it did not end with 9/11, because after that we had a shoe bomber.
Yeah.
The guy had explosives in his shoes, and he was trying to set it off during a flight, and he failed.
Yeah.
And by dumb luck, because I think the lighter didn't work, or so it was something weird. And
and people smelled the smoke.
yeah, and passengers
Yeah.
jumped on him, and they held him, till they landed, and they arrested him, whatever. But I was just like, damn, that's so close, But yeah, it was a weird time. It was definitely a weird time. I remember a lot of people were not flying there at that time because it was scary. It was definitely scary. It's just one of those things where it's like we're kind of living in those times now, but for a different reason. Like right now, it's like people are thinking twice about going to Coachella. Because it's like, who wants to be among crowds right now? But
Yeah.
different thing. But similar thoughts. A fear.
Yeah. Actually, and you bring up a good point, because now I'm curious to know what plans Disney had and has had to scrap
Right.
until we figure out COVID.
Right. I always think that they always have something big in the works,
Oh, yes.
because
Oh, yes.
I mean, animal stuff aside, I mean, look, they bought Pixar, they bought Lucasfilm, so they own Pixar, they own Star Wars, now they own Fox, so it's like they have
bought
plans.
ESPN,
yeah.
ABC. Yeah.
Yeah, so they have plans to Marvel's another one, so I know they're doing little things here and there, or Marvel Land, and Pixar Land and all that, but those are little. I mean, they can go really huge if they want to.
Yeah. And so going back to this, remember it's like 2001, 2002, it's been
Yes.
empty. And these hotels, if you look them up, were essentially multi-million dollar buildings that were just abandoned.
Right.
But it has a happy ending. The resort finally opened 14 years later. But they call it now the Art of Animation Resort. So they scrapped whatever idea they had of it being like decades because it was supposed to be called Legendary Years.
Right.
And so now it's the Art of Animation Resort. So it's very kid friendly, but to think that it was abandoned for 14 years, just laying there. And again, Disney has the capital, right, to allow that.
Right.
But it was one of the abandoned resorts. So I learned a lot with this in the sense that, September 11 came and put a damper on Disney's budget and dreams of, and they were at a loss. So me having gone through September 11 as well, I remember a lot of the stuff that we were talking about, but I just never thought of the tourism end of it. And, I was what, 18, 19 when that happened.
Right.
So I feel like I learned a lot. So there was a tourism crash that I was not aware of. My young self was not aware. Have you heard of, well, no, this never came to be, but the CEO of Disney wanted to do a theme park called Disney's America. They announced it in 1993. They wanted to build Disney's America in Virginia, the state of Virginia here in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
This was supposed to be where you would, I guess, when you would walk into the park, it would start like right where America's, and America's meaning the United States history began. And then as you continued to walk through the park, it would take you to different times of our history. But the state of Virginia, the people of Virginia fought that shit hard. They did not want it. They fought it really, really hard. And so there was a lot of backlash. And so I guess when Disney was very excited because they were like, it's within driving distance from, Washington, D.C., which is our capital.
Right.
So they had, not only did they have like this whole theme park set up, but they bought the land. So the land was bought. They had it ready. They would also have hotels and resorts, and they were going to have like a bus service where if we went and stayed there, we can take the bus for a day trip to Washington, right? So they felt like there was a lot of potential. But the state fought really hard against it. And so then they thought, well, because of the backlash, why don't we change the name and it's into America Celebrated? And Disney was really pushing it. And again, a lot of backlash. Like they just were meeting resistance from every angle. Wow. So they finally decided to abandon the idea altogether and eventually sold the land to developers. And now there's like homes there that are like $1 million homes, by the way. Wow. But I looked at the plans and I was like, well, I mean, I would have I think I would have enjoyed it. Like, yeah, they even had like ideas for like presidential stuff. It was basically supposed to be about our history, but I guess also people didn't want Disney politicized, or maybe they thought that as well. But Virginia really did say, no, not in our backyard.
Wow, that's crazy.
Disney sold the land. Yeah. So I thought that was very interesting. They tried for almost 15 years to get that going, but it never happened.
Wow.
I also found out that Knott's Berry Farm, when this didn't pan out, Knott's Berry Farm around that time, the owners were going to sell the theme park, and so Disney put a bid for it, and they thought maybe they can put America there.
Huh.
Then when the owners of Knott's heard the plans, or that they would make a lot of changes, they declined Disney's offer.
Oh, no.
So another company bought them out. Yeah, I didn't know any of that. So I was like, ooh, very curious.
Yeah.
Remember, that's why I like doing these things, because then you end up finding more stuff, you know. And again, I'm
Right.
not a Disney enthusiast, so I'm sure a lot of Disney enthusiasts know all of this, but I was like, whoa, I didn't know Knott's was sold. And I didn't know
Yeah.
Disney was bidding for that land, you know?
Right.
So yeah, Knott said, nope, sorry, next.
That's crazy.
But yeah, going back, I guess, to those were the places I wanted to talk about. But going back to what you were saying is that like Disney has to keep up with the times.
Yeah.
And so they're constantly, continuously, they need to find ways to revamp its image and get with the times, right? And I guess that's why there's so many resorts and theme parks around the world with Disney's name, right?
Right.
So it sounds like they have a whole department on just theme park and resort, you know, thought process.
Right.
Lots of money goes into it. And I guess because they have so much money, they can leave acres of land unattended and abandoned until they
Right.
figure out, you know, what they're going to do. I don't know. But I don't know. What did you think of this episode?
It's interesting because this is one side of Disney I did not know a lot about. I'm a Disney enthusiast. I'm like not like I don't have a annual pass, for example. Actually, you know, funny story is 2020 wasn't going to be my first annual pass, to be honest with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck 2020.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, the reason why, and mind you, I would go 3 or 4 times a year only because one of my friends he's an Imagineer. So he would always be like, "Hey, Christmas time, let's all go together, right?" And you know, or Halloween time, right, or summertime, or my birthday. Like for the last 5 years, I was always going there because of him. You know, he was always kind enough to be like, "Hey, be my guest," whatever. You know. So the reason why I loved going with him is because it was a different experience. Like you go with your friends who are Disney, you know, fanatics, and they're like, we got to get in line for this and go here and go there, right? And it's like with him, it's different. It's like we're having a casual, relaxing day. Like we're not in line for the rides because it's
You're
like,
just having fun there.
well, fun, but in a different way because he's
Yeah.
pointing out the details. He's like, have you guys ever noticed this?
The
Have you
architecture.
the architecture, the lighting, the decor, the colors. You know, he's a Disney historian himself. Like if they gave him that title, like he knows everything. So to
Can we
me,
have him on?
he would love to talk
I'm
to you
like,
about that.
ooh.
Seriously, he would love to
Oh
talk
my
to you.
God.
He's
I
a
know, yeah.
super nice guy. And the funny thing is, he introduced me to a word that I never really embraced. But when you go there, have you been during the holidays, during Christmas time?
I have not.
It's the one
No.
thing you got to do. And honestly, if you do not go on one ride, okay, just go just to experience it. He introduced me to this word and he called it Disney magic. And I thought, okay, that's marketing, right? But then it's like you go Christmas time and it's absolutely beautiful. There's Christmas decor everywhere. Every shop, every facade, every ride, everywhere, except for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. You know, they keep that separate, you know, no decor there, but it's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful. And it gets you into the spirit of the holidays, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you
I've
just
seen
feel-
a lot of people post pictures. It does look beautiful in the
It
pictures
is.
I've seen. I've just not experienced it, but
It
I'm sure
is.
it's a lot better in person.
Yeah, and you know, and I told him the stories because him and one of my best friends would go together. They're them two are best friends, so they go together all the time, right? They both have passes and all that. And I told him, I go, look, I grew up where my parents couldn't afford it to go all the time, so maybe we'd go like once a year, once every 2 years, you know, as a big family thing with all my cousins and all that, and we'd run crazy around, you know, all day, all night, and it was a fun thing, you know. But going now as an adult, like it brings back the memories of being a kid, you know, and
Yeah.
it reminds me that it's like it's the one place where like I've been there in recent years or the past 2 or 3 years where I've had bad news in my life, like just things are not working out, right?
Yeah.
But I still decided to go and I felt the happiest there. And it's just because you're taking it all in. Like you're looking at the beautiful lights, the decor, the scenery. You're learning something new about the history of why this was built and why this is still working, why this is the original light bulb. Like there's so much to look at. And to me, that was like such a wonderful experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I'm gonna get a pass finally in 2020, so I can join my friends all the time, right? And like I said, we've been on these rides a million times. We don't have to we don't have to waste our lives in those lines. But they also have secret menus all over the park.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can get this here, that there, or seasonal, holiday tea or hot chocolate, or you can get the alcohol at California Adventure. It's just like there's so many cool little things to experience that often people don't get to because there's so much to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of stuff I miss. Like, honestly, this is the year where I was like, I miss that, because that's what we would do every Christmas for the last 3 or 4 years, and it's so much fun. And it's just taking it all in. And it's all because, they believe in giving you a good experience,
Yeah.
Like I
They're
told
doing
them
something right.
Yeah. I told them, like, look, when I was a kid and we used to come here, the park was not all that clean. Like, what I'm saying? Like, it was a different experience, like maybe they had 2 food options, or 3, and they weren't
Yeah.
that great,
And
and
it's funny that you mentioned that, because when I was looking at all this stuff in one of the documentaries, they had said that it wasn't until the 80s that, they had a revamp because they were being close to being sold.
right.
Disney. So I agree with what you're saying. It was almost like when the new CEO came, he just really turned the sinking ship around,
Right.
because apparently they were looking into selling each theme park, each resort separately. And I
Yeah.
was like, what? Disney was doing that bad?
Yeah, and it's weird. It's like, I remember but the last time I'd been there before going with my friends was grad night. When I graduated high school, we all went to grad night. And it was still that same experience as a kid. It was like things weren't, the food wasn't that great, that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
So then I stopped going for like 15 years. I stopped going completely, right? Had no reason to go, right? Like, it's just one of those things where I'm like, I don't care, whatever, And then all of a sudden I started going because of my friend. He's like, hey, let's all go have fun. And I'm like, what? Like, there's so many restaurants. There's so many food options. Like, there's fine dining in 4 or 5 restaurants now in the parks, And I'm talking just the ones here locally, Now they have alcohol in one of the parks. They make great drinks. The hotel, there's 2 hotels on the property, and one of them has amazing food and drinks, And this is one of those things where I'm like, this is so amazing. Like, I come here as an adult now, and there's so much to do now, just in terms of watching and eating.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even have
I
to go
agree
on
with
one. You don't have to go on one ride. Just like have a plan for dinner and lunch at these nice experiences, and you're like, wow. You're like, this is amazing. Like, it was it's totally worth it now. Sad thing is, of course, right now everything's closed down. We don't know when it's going to reopen. For whatever reason, I don't understand how Florida is open, but they are. Disney World is open.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Or is it the outdoor shopping area?
No, in Disney World, the park is open. They shut down very minimally, and they came up with the rule of, like, when we reopen, it's only going to be whatever it is, 20% capacity or whatever, So they never
I
shut
didn't know
down.
that.
Yeah. So you can actually go to Disney World right now, and of course they have strict guidelines about wearing masks and distancing, and they're sanitizing every 5 minutes, wiping everything down, so I don't know what the experience is like, but oddly enough, they are open. And, sadly over here, we're not, but I understand why, because you can't be standing in line with all these people, in times where the air can get you sick, so, but definitely a place I enjoy going, oddly enough. And like I said, every time that I would go, different experience, and all because my friend pointed these things out to me,
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm glad you have that friend.
Yeah, and like, like I look forward to passing that, paying it forward just to somebody else who, like, is interested, that doesn't know anything about these kind of things. I'm like, hey, let's go have fun at the park, like this, like I'll show you what I learned about this and what so it's like, it's kind of a fun thing, that, even though the park is not that big, it's still one of those places where Like if you're coming to LA to go to Disneyland, whenever it's open again, it's like I still think it's a place you can easily take 3 days, to explore everything, do everything, because there is a lot to do and see.
Yeah, there really is. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us on this episode. I hope you guys learned some stuff.
Yes.
And I hope that you guys have a good New Year's. And remember, we're going positive from here on out. 2021 is going to be better. Just say that.
Yes.
We got this. We got this. We got this.
Yeah.
We are loved. We are grateful for what we do have.
Yes.
And, just hug your loved ones. And,
yes,
we're going to be okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, see you next time, Leone. You join me again?
Yes, absolutely. We'll see you next time, Mary.
All right. Bye, everyone. That was episode 43 of the Purposely Curious podcast. Make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on most podcast platforms. And follow us on social media at Purposely Curious on Instagram and at Purposely C Pod on Twitter. That's Purposely the letter C Pod. Until next time, you know what to do.